the OrthoPAC, hosted by Sam Dyer. Welcome to the OrthoPAC, where we discuss up-to-date orthopedic topics for the busy clinician. I invite you to sit back and relax as I attempt to fill in the gaps between education, current events, and real-world practice. Today's guest is Mike Weber. Mike is a PA, retired from orthopedics and his own private practice. Mike lives in Alaska, and I wanted to have him on today to discuss retirement, private practice, and some of his life's journey. He had a long career. I mean, what advice would you have? What did you like and what did you not like? I mean, what got your socks on your feet, got you out the door in the morning, and what made you want to just stay in bed?
There were only 8 PAs when I graduated, so it was kind of like the medical community, or the doctors anyway in orthopedics, really didn't know much about PAs or what they could do. Well, through my spy network, I found out that this guy really hated paperwork. And so what I did as a student, I approached him. We worked out a deal where I would come in every Thursday afternoon, do all of his inpatient surgeries for next week. And then ultimately, the guy just found out that, I could really do a lot of stuff for him. So he hired me, and we worked together for 9 years. Then he retired. And so then I bounced around, and I think I worked for like 5 other guys. And there was no conflict, but everybody kept retiring on me. So one day I looked into opening my own business, and I dealt with Ron Nelson from Michigan, because he was working on remote clinics at the time, and found out that as a physician assistant, you cannot bill independently. So like if I sent out a bill as Mike Weber, PA, that's in violation of federal law. But a physician assistant can bill under hospital, clinic, doctor, or a corporation. So I incorporated myself into a little business called Orthopaedic Triage. I hooked up with this one orthopedic surgeon. He was willing to be my collaborative physician. And interestingly, some other guys had deals like that here in the state, but the doctors were charging them really a lot of money on a quarterly basis. But this guy, because I referred to him, didn't charge me. And so it really worked out sweet. And of course, then having the collaborative plan with a physician, it covered me on the state level. So, it was one of those things that just happened, and it happened to work out very good. I've been asked by some people how to do it. And, the trouble there is you have to know your state laws. You need to contact somebody at AAPA and understand the federal ramifications and become a member of the academy, because much like, as we know with PAOS, it's a gold mine of information. And so that, as Sam knows, I've been a member of PAOS now, I don't know, probably 27 years. And I think the only reason I didn't go to the first 2 meetings is I didn't know about them until I got one of these letters in the mail one day inviting me. And I really look back on that time as being very important, not only from the fact of the camaraderie, but, to get that kind of information, it's really important. And I hope people would learn from that, or from this podcast, that, if they're listening in, debating whether to join or not, is that a benefit, but it's also a great resource to help a person understand the ins and the outs.
You had a long career, Mike, and I appreciate the plug there for PAOS. I agree with Mike 100%. Join and be a member of the Academy PAOS. I think that's a good thing to do.
When I retired, I have a little microbrewery down in my workshop, and the boys were over one night, and we're smoking cigars, drinking beer, and someone said to me, "Hey, when are you going to retire?" And I said, I think around 62 I'll hang it up. And he said, "Well, I hate to break it to you, but aren't you 64? And 30 days later, the letter went out, and I retired. It was like, it really shocked me, but I loved going to work. I have to admit it. Is that, and that was one of the problems with retirement then, is that I was totally lost. In Fairbanks here, there's only like 96,000 people, and I had over 4,000 active charts. So, I had a big population. My goal as a physician assistant in a non-surgical practice was to keep people away from doctors, and wasn't anything nasty, but that's what my business flourished on, is that utilizing handouts and taking time with patients, just explaining things and showing your care. And it's the personal quality again of just, hey, pay attention to the patient. And so that was part of the part of retiring, is that I felt that I was really needed in the community. And what had happened is for 18 months, I was a complete jackass. I mean, why my wife didn't either kill me or divorce me, I'll never know.
If you know Mary, what he's saying is very true. So, Mary, when you hear this,
Yeah, but
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
what
so
we're
that
trying
one
to
day when I was sitting out on the yard doing some work or something, all of a sudden I realized that I wasn't so important to the patients as the fact that they were important feeding my ego. And once I let that go, man, it was like I'd had a heart attack and just survived. It gave me that opportunity or that moment to say, it's okay, let it go, you're done. And it's funny because now 6 years after retirement, I still have people coming up to me saying, "You dirty SOB, I need you now. Why did you retire?" And it makes me almost sometimes want to leave Fairbanks because Mary won't go in a store with me anymore because everybody stops us and chit chats. And of course, me being a social butterfly, hell, I can't walk past an old friend and not say hello and shoot the breeze. So a quick trip to town turns into a couple hours. and but and I think that's one of the things. Like I know we talked earlier about what to watch out for, or the pitfalls of retirement. And to me, that was one of the major things. Is yes, I have hobbies. I have a little cabin on a river I can go to. But it's so different when one day you wake up and you say, you know what, I'm done. I don't have anything to do with medicine anymore. And it really hurt. And then I kept my license for a while thinking, well, maybe I'll go do locum tenens. And then one day I sat down and I said, okay, Weber, you're now 67 years old. You hate electronic records. You've never worked in a clinic setting. I wouldn't hire me, And so then I just shredded everything. And finally when my DEA license came through and it went through the grinder, it was like, okay, you're done now, pal. Whether you want to or not, you are unemployed.
Mm-hmm.
So, the retirement thing is interesting because it is such a final chapter in some ways. I mean, it opens new doors for all sorts of exciting things, but as far as your work, it's over. And of course, now that all my licenses are shredded and stuff, I don't miss it, but I do. And I really do miss work. I had way too much fun being a physician assistant.
What advice would you have for people that are, close to retirement or thinking about it? I know when you're, coming out guns blazing right out of school, you're thinking about, my house, my car, what have you. But at some point, a lot of us get there. So what would you say? I mean, how do you transition and what kinds of things do you need to think about?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I incorporated, we sat down with an accountant and started looking at planning, even though, we, like you said, we're right out of the blocks, basically. I mean, even though I'd been a PA, 12 years or 13 years, when you do a business, that's one of the things they never taught us in school. So that was a real learning curve. But what we did is set up a simple IRA account right away and just started contributing to that. And then as time wore on, any retirement, it was, for Mary and I, it worked out just beautifully because we just realized a long time ago that you need to think about stuff like that. And it was kind of funny because as I was cleaning out my drawers, not my personal drawers, my files, I found a paper that I wrote in 1972 when I was in college, my second tour. And by God, I was a socialist. It was like I said we should do military requirements, and then after that, get benefits from then until like 35 or so, because of the fact that as a young person, you want a house, you want a family, you want, and you don't have any money. And so I laughed about that, and then I burned the paper. I didn't want anybody to find that. And but it was a lesson to find that, because it again made you look at the fact that work and life are terminal, and if you plan appropriately, you can have a lot of fun, and that's where we're at, um, because we did good planning and things like that. The kids grew up, and all three of our children are educated and working, and so the planning thing has to be early in life. You can't wait. If I had to talk to a group of people, I would definitely focus on that. Find time to put that little bit of money away now, and in these times, it's even more important, I think, than when we were younger. Of course,
Very wise words. I totally agree. Very wise words. If you had it to do over again, what would you do differently, and what would you keep the same?
I would do it again in a heartbeat. And if I did, I would hope I have the knowledge now. And it's the old adage that wasting on age. And it hurts that you look back on your life and say, wow, if I'd only known this back then, I could have done something different. Not because I was successful. So I'm very happy with what happened in my life as a physician assistant, and being here in Fairbanks was just a gold mine for us as far as good people, and so I don't think I have any drawbacks. And I know, Sam, you'd asked me in that little preamble what I didn't like, and what happened later on in my career is it was all the BS with the paperwork. It was interesting that as a PA, it was an expensive risk to open an office, and I know I had to spend a fair amount of money each month or see X amount of patients, because of the fact that it just, you're not like a surgeon. I'd go and do surgical assisting, but you look across the table, this guy is pulling down a lot of money, and so he, doing surgery 6 days a month, he covered his overhead really good. Whereas as a PA, I had to really hump it to see enough people to produce revenue to get you through that month. And so that would be the one thing that I'd make sure that you got your T's crossed and I's dotted. And the one thing, some of the doctors that I know, people were saying, "Oh, you're a fool. You're never going to make it. It'll take you 2 to 3 years to get established." Well, the one benefit I had was that the doctors that I worked for were all good guys, and so I was pretty well known in town. So it wasn't like I had to go and reinvent the wheel. There were days that it kind of got scary because, well, for example, the first time I took a vacation, I came back and the books didn't look good, and I said, "Jesus, didn't you guys? Oh, wait, I'm the only breadwinner here." And it was like, so I was afraid to take time off there for a while. But after a while, it worked out. And it was perseverance with just following the state rules and the federal law, so that any time you got in any kind of ballywick, you could just say, "Hey, here's what I based it on." And so I became kind of a political savvy character. And in a way, it was challenging. But toward the end of the practice, it got frustrating because you had to always sit on the phone more and more and more. And you're saying, this is productive time when I should be seeing patients, earning income to pay the bills. And I think that was one of the things that, not only the fact that I was 64, but it got to the point where, you'd come in after taking a day off, or like every Monday we did surgery. So I go in Tuesdays, I'd have a stack of charts for med refills, insurance problems, and so you'd find yourself going in early or staying late, which it's understandable. Medicine is not a 9 to 5 profession, but that's where I would come from if I was giving talks on this.
Right. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for being on today. We really appreciate your time. Listeners, Mike Weber, PAC Emeritus from the PAOS. Mike, thanks for being on today.
Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining the OrthoPAC podcast. Join us for our 21st annual meeting in Nashville, Tennessee, PAOS in the Music City, September the 6th to September the 10th, 2021 at the Omni Nashville Hotel. Check PAOS.org for details.